Hey everyone, welcome to the first devlog for Runeborn Ascent. So this is a 2D platformer I've been building in Unity, and honestly it's been a bit of a wild ride getting here. I'm not a programmer by trade, and I've been using Claude Code to help me with the coding and the problem solving. I've been handling the testing, debugging and figuring out exactly what I want the game to feel like. I'm also teaching myself pixel art alongside all of this. So, if you're someone thinking about making a game but worried you don't have all the skills yet, this is how I'm doing it. You don't need to know everything before you start, you just need to start and figure it out as you go. Now, I want to be upfront. This is week 1, pretty much day 1 of the devlog journey, and the game isn't polished yet. There are no animations, the art's a placeholder, and it's being held together with duct tape and good intentions. But that's the whole point of documenting this from the beginning. You get to see the messy, early stages. Today I want to walk you through everything I've built so far, show you the core mechanics and talk a bit about the journey of getting from I have an idea to, okay, this is actually feeling like a game now. Let's get into it. So the big thing that makes Runeborn Ascent different from other platformers is the levitation system. I didn't want to just make another game where you run and jump. I wanted something that felt magical, something where movement itself was part of the strategy. So the idea I landed on was this: what if your main ability was to levitate, but it cost you mana to do it? That one decision shaped basically everything else in the game, because now it's not just about platforming skill, it's about resource management. Do you save your mana for a tricky section later, or do you burn it all now to get past this obstacle quickly? That tension is what I want the game to feel like. And getting that to feel right, it's taking a lot of trial and error, and there'll be a lot more to come. Before I get into the fancy stuff, let me show you the basic movement, because I spent a lot of time on making sure this felt good. Now you'll notice the character is just kind of sliding around. No run cycle, no jump animation, nothing fancy. That's all still to come. Right now, I'm focused on getting the mechanics right before I worry about making it look pretty. You've got your standard running and jumping, but there's a bunch of stuff happening under the hood to make it responsive. I've got coyote time, which gives you that tiny window to still jump even after you've walked off a platform. And there's also a jump buffer, so that if you press it just before you land, it still registers. These are small things, but they make a huge difference. Without them, the game feels sluggish and unfair. With them, it feels like the character is doing what you want them to do. I've also added variable jump height, so if you tap the jump button, you can do a small hop, but if you hold it, you jump higher. And there's enhanced gravity when you're falling, so you don't float down slowly like you're on the moon, it just makes everything feel snappier. Okay, now the good stuff, the levitation. So you hold the levitation button and your character rises up in the air. Simple enough, right? But here's where it gets interesting. It costs mana, so there's an initial cost to start levitating and then it drains continuously while you're in the air. So you can't just hold it forever, you have to be smart about when you use it. There's also a height cap, you can only levitate so high from where you started, and when you hit that ceiling you hover there in zero gravity until you let go. It stops you from flying off into space. And here's something I'm really happy with, you can start levitating mid-air. So if you jump and realise you're not going to make it, you can pop levitation as an emergency brake. That saved me quite a few times during testing. It feels really good every time. When you release the levitation, you don't just float down gently, there's an enhanced gravity, so you drop with a satisfying snap. It feels intentional and not floaty. I've added something called the ground slam. If you're levitating and press the jump button, you rocket straight down. It costs a bit of mana, but it's great for getting down quickly. Here's the thing though, when you hit the ground after the slam, there's a small bounce, and I ran into a problem where if you hold the jump button during that bounce, you'd launch way higher than intended, which you could exploit it for a massive height boost. So I've had to add a dedicated slam bounce state. During that bounce, all jump mechanics are blocked, and there's 5 times normal gravity. It gives you this quick punchy little hop, and then you're grounded. No exploits, but it feels satisfying. Of course, slam landings are immune to fall damage, you're not punished for using the ability. My intention is for this to also act as an attack down the road when I've got enemies and things, but for now it's a cool little movement mechanic. On top of levitation, I've also got wall sliding and wall jumping. When you press into a wall while airborne, you slide down at a controlled speed. You can kick off the wall with a jump that launches you away. The sprite automatically flips to face away from the wall, which is a small detail but feels right. And as I get more animations in the game, there'll be dedicated animations for that movement. Then there's the air dash. It's a quick horizontal burst while you're in the air. Again, it costs mana, so you can't spam it, and you only get 1 per jump. It resets when you land or touch a wall. But here's the cool part. If you dash into a wall, it triggers a wall jump automatically, and that resets the dash. So you can do these crazy sequences where you dash, hit a wall, jump, dash, hit again, hit another wall, and just chain it all together. It feels pretty good when you pull it off. Even without animations, it's satisfying, so I can't wait to see how it feels once I've got the proper visuals in here. Let's talk about the mana, because it's the backbone of all these abilities. You've got a mana pool that regenerates over time, but it pauses during ability use. Levitation, dashing, slamming, they all draw from the same pool, so you're constantly making decisions on how to spend it. For health, I went with a fall damage system based on how far you actually fall. The game tracks your takeoff height and the peak height you reach while airborne. When you land, it calculates the distance from your peak to the landing point and converts that to damage using actual physics. There's a safe threshold so you don't take chip damage from tiny hit pops. That system was a nightmare to figure out, honestly. I went through like 3 or 4 different approaches, and thank God for Claude Code, because we finally landed on something that worked. I tested it, realised it broke in some weird edge case, explained the problem, and then we'd try again. The first attempt just looked at your speed when you hit the ground, but that couldn't tell the difference between an intentional drop and an accidental one. Eventually we landed on tracking peak height, and now it works at any position in the level. I also added smooth health bar and animation. When you take damage or health, the bar doesn't just snap to the new value, it lerps smoothly every frame, which feels way more satisfying. That was another bug we had to fix. Originally the health bar wouldn't respond to potions properly because it was only updating once instead of continuously animating. One of the things I'm excited about for level design is updraft zones. These are invisible trigger volumes that simulate magical air currents. So when you enter one, a few things happen. First, your levitation mana cost is reduced, so you can configure it so levitation is completely free inside the zone. Second, there's a constant upward force pushing you up. And third, the levitation height cap gets overridden to the top of the Updraft collider, so you can ride the current all the way up. There's even a toggle for whether it affects all players or those actively levitating. So I can have gentle updrafts just to give you that boost, or strong ones that only kick in when you're using your abilities. Right now they're invisible in game, just gizmo boxes in the editor with a little upwards arrow so I can see them when designing levels. I will eventually add particle effects so that players can see the wind, but that's on the list for later. I've also added a full inventory system, which it's pretty crude, but it works. It's built on scriptable objects so that I can create new item types really easily. Items can stack, they have configurable max stack sizes, and there's different types like consumables and equipment. You press tab to open the inventory, it shows a grid of everything you've collected with icons and stack counts. You can then click them and assign them to one of the 4 hotkey slots which are visible at the bottom of the screen. The hotkey bar is always visible on screen at the moment, showing the 4 slots, icons, stacks and counts. You can press the number key during gameplay to use whatever's assigned there. So right now I've got 2 consumables, a health potion that restores 50 HP and a full restore that gives you 100 HP and 100 mana. They stack to 10 each and they're smart. They won't let you waste a potion if you're already at full health. Claude Code and I had fun with the bugs in this system. At one point the inventory UI was blocking clicks because the Text Mesh Pro elements had raycast targets enabled. Clicks were hitting the text instead of the buttons underneath, and I had to disable the raycast targets on all of the display only text. There was also an input conflict where the number keys were being consumed by both the inventory for hotkey assignment and the gameplay for hotkey use at the same time. I had to add a gate so the gameplay input ignores those keys when the inventory is open. For collectibles in the world, I've got item pickups. You can walk into them and they add into your inventory automatically. These were a small technical challenge as well. The pickup detection was using get component in parent to find the inventory system on the player, which means it works even if the collision comes from a child object, like the feet ground collider. It's a small thing, but it prevented a lot of headaches. So that's where Runeborn Ascent is after week 1. I know it doesn't look like much yet, no animations as I said, no placeholder arts, rough edges everywhere, but the bones are there. The movement feels good and the mana economy creates interesting decisions, and the foundation is ready for me to start building on top. Next up I want to tackle those animations and get a proper run, cycle, jump, animation, levitation pose. I want the character to feel alive instead of just sliding around like a hockey puck. After that I need to start working on the actual levels. I need to design some challenges that put all these mechanics to the test, and eventually I'll add enemies and combat and something to fight. The pixel art is a work in progress. I'm learning as I go, and same as everything else, but that's kind of the point. As I said with these devlogs, I want to document the whole process from the very beginning, the wins and the struggles. So if you're on a similar journey, you know you're not alone. Alright, that's it for devlog number 1, week 1, the beginning. If you want to follow along with the development, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments, and whether it's feedback on the mechanics, suggestions for features, or just saying hi. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.